What's going on YouTube? Heathen Ryan here, back with another video. Today we are going to be checking out King Trout. I know I haven't checked out any of his videos before, and I only know him from, I think, a couple of his shorts and also him showing up on the Unsubscribe podcast. But he seemed funny enough, and I wanted to check him out. And this video is about that one time the CIA nuked the island and an island off the map. So without further ado, let's jump into it.
In the early 2000s, Mexican journalist Guillermo Marin stepped forward with a bold claim. The CIA had attacked a sovereign piece of Mexican territory, and had done so severely that they blew it off the face of the earth. Why would they do this?
I wouldn't be super surprised, but...
Spoiler alert, not really any. But more importantly, why would they...
What'd that say? And it also, having no evidence doesn't really surprise me either. Judging from this, I'm trying to think. Oh, okay.
But more importantly,
just trying to think on why they would. It makes no sense. The CIA wouldn't be quote unquote testing
alone and heights.
CIA wouldn't be testing nukes. That isn't the CIA's job. So in general, why would they nuke this Mexican island?
But that's neither here nor there. Join me today as we discuss the mysterious disappearance of the Mexican island of Bermeja. Our story begins all the way back in 1539 with the earliest known mention of the island of Bermeja. It was discovered by some Spanish explorer. No one knows who, which I find kind of odd, but regardless, that's when it first began to appear on maps. It was described as a small reddish-brown island. The Spanish word Bermeja means reddish-brown, or russet, which is this color.
I just realized I was speaking. I had just muted my mic, so I'm a dipshit.
Spanish explorers began including it on their maps.
So what I meant was I paused it, and yeah, I like the fact they used quotations for discovered or whatever. Not sure if I've said that already. Maybe I have, but I was going to say something else, but I can't remember exactly what I was going to say. So let's just stick with what I did.
During the Age of Exploration, where it appeared approximately 60 miles north of the Yucatan Peninsula. What is that in kilometers? Don't know, don't care. It continued to be included on
freedom
maps,
units,
leading to its credibility as a legitimate landmass, despite the fact that there were very few first-hand accounts of its existence.
Is this the one island that everyone always says is like disappeared or whatever? I think Mini Minuteman did a fucking video on it when in reality it was word of mouth that it was there, so it was put on maps, but it more than likely wasn't actually there, and so it was a quote unquote disappearing island or something like that. I think this is the island they were talking about, because it was like a sunken island or something like that people think was there but then disappeared, and supposedly it got just removed from maps or something like that. I want to say this is the island that Mini Minuteman that he was talking about, but I'm not positive.
1, 2, skip a few. 304 years later, in 1844, doubts about Bermeja's existence began to arise. British cartographer John Arrowsmith excluded it from his maps because he believed it was either a phantom island or one of those stupid Spaniards had made a mistake. Spain and England have had kind of an on-again, off-again situationship, as the kids would say, over the course of history. But during this time, they were on-again.
I never want to hear I never want to hear that term ever fucking again. A situationship. No, I hate that term. Are you in a relationship or not? I hate that term. And I don't know what it does to me, but I hate the fact that Trout has actually used it now.
Come together to do war with the country everyone in the world loves to hate, France. But that has nothing to do with this story. Through the late 1800s, ships navigating the Gulf of Mexico reported no sightings of the island where it was supposed to exist, which fueled the debate between sailors and cartographers as to whether or not Bermeja even existed. Bing bong, fast forward a couple more decades to the 1940s, when cartography became even more advanced, primarily because this guy wanted half of Poland. Due to these advancements in cartography, the island began to appear on fewer
and also, was that Chaplin? Charlie Chaplin? Or is that just some random actor who they got to play as him? I don't think that's Chaplin. It doesn't necessarily look like him. So it's just some random fucking actor who's playing Hitler. But yeah, fuck that guy.
Poland. Due to these advancements in cartography, the island began to appear on fewer and fewer maps, and the belief that it was a phantom island began to increase. I'm not doing the thing anymore because I say phantom island like 6 more times in this video. For the record, a phantom island is a geographical error where one time one dude made note of a piece of land existing and everybody just copied his homework instead of double checking and confirming that it was actually there. So a fake island disappeared. Womp womp.
Did you say want? Bottom line is very clear. You? When you cross
How dare you?
Sir.
And honestly, I think that's what Mini Minuteman said is what happened. Sorry, I can hear something in the background. Mini Minuteman is an archaeologist, so I think I trust his opinion on it. So I think he did a short on it.
Who cares? Not really anybody. Until 1988, when my favorite global organization came along. The UN!
Fuck the UN.
In 1988, the
Fuck
UN
those blueberries.
adopted the Convention on the Law of the Sea in Montego Bay, Jamaica. Key Largo, Montego, baby, why don't we go? We'll get there fast, and then we'll adopt international conventions on the...
I've been to Jamaica. I really want to go back. Jamaica was so nice. We went there a couple times on vacation to the beaches resort. I had so much fun. I really want to go back. It was all inclusive, swim up bar. I had virgin strawberry daiquiris when I was a child because the oldest I was when I went there, I think was like 12. It was such a fun time.
Legality of mineral and fishing rights of the world's oceans. Yes, this convention established the rights to nations' territorial waters, as well as exclusive economic zones, or EEZs, not to be confused with Eazy-E, who was a famous rapper from Compton who died of AIDS.
No joke. There's no joke there.
EEZs allow for the exclusive economic control of the waters surrounding a nation's country. Surrounding a nation would be the easier way of saying that. I don't know why I'm struggling to say EEZ as opposed to exclusive economic zone. For some reason, I find that easier to say. I think it's because I want to say Eazy-E.
Yeah, I can see. Not going to say anything. But no, I understand it. It's easier to say the full title when you want to when you keep wanting to say something else.
They determined that a nation's EEZ would extend 200 nautical miles out from their coastline, including islands. Can you see where this is going? Can you?
Speaking of which, I think this is how China tried the whole island thing, where it includes their islands. It's only up to a certain point because China tries justifying that with that kind of thought process with expanding their international waters their borders, their waters, when in reality, that isn't actually fully how it works. And so China is constantly getting into shit with the UN, I want to say, about their water rights and whatnot.
Okay. Talking about an island?
Ooh.
Okay. So the convention went into force in November of 1994 after it received the necessary ratifications. As such, the Gulf of Mexico was divided amongst the nations bordering it, 200 nautical miles out from their shores. Now, in between the exclusive economic zones of Mexico and the United States of America, there existed a
Technically two, but so yeah, I guess. Yeah, we're talking about the one that matters, not this one.
so-called donut hole, where neither of the borders reached fully to meet each other. Now, why is this donut hole noteworthy? It's because it's bleeding oil, baby. Black gold. In 1997, America approached
Thing
Mexico
that makes the world
and
go
was like,
round.
"Hola, y'all. Want to go 50-50 and double team that oiled up donut hole?" And then all of a sudden, and for no particular reason, I'm
Didn't
sure,
need that.
Mexico remembered Bermeja. Since the EEZs extend out from all coastline,
Sure, there was no
including
reason
islands,
for it
if they
whatsoever.
could prove that the island of Bermeja existed, then they would have that oily hole all to themselves.
Oh, please stop saying
So
oily
the
hole
search
and
was
putting Diddy on the
Mexico
screen.
sent out their
God.
Navy and some university survey teams into the area with advanced sonar and satellite technology to find the island. And finally, one day, they gave up because they didn't find anything. But this prompted two
Not a
questions.
big surprise.
One, was Bermeja real? And two, if it was real, where the hell did it go? The year is now 2000, and the U.S. is thirsty for oil. But they have
God,
a
don't-
plan.
I love you, Trap.
No,
Don't
not
do that fucking
yet.
noise.
They were going to meet up with them.
Oh,
They have a plan.
I missed it.
No, not that yet.
No,
They
we're
were
not
going to meet up
invading
with the
yet.
Mexican government and arrange, some sort of deal where both of us could use the donut hole. They were going to meet up and sign a treaty expressly breaking up how that area could be
Come on, Mexico, sign the deal. You know how the U.S. gets about its oil. You're a small... You're not the first nation we'll invade for oil, and you won't be the last.
used, since nobody technically owned it, and the only two nations that could, in theory, even get there legally were the United States and Mexico, since both of us owned all of the ocean around it. So in 2000, the Mexican government, despite many critics to the agreement, including Guillermo Marin, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, met with the United States and signed the treaty. The Treaty
Smart
of the
move.
Delimitation of the Continental Shelf remains in place to this day. Now, like I just said, there were many critics in Mexico to this agreement because they felt they were getting the short end of the stick. If they could just prove Bermeja existed, then they owned almost all of that sweet, sweet donut hole. Which, seriously, like, why? I get why you would call it that because it's like a cute nickname, but like, give it a technical name.
Please. I don't
Talking
want to
about
hear... I don't want to keep hearing
Very
donut hole.
resource-rich part of the ocean that two nations are, signing treaties over. Or are we gonna call it a silly snack name? I don't know, whatever, I guess.
What would you call it in that case? Resource zone or something like that? International resource zone or something like that, I guess? I don't know exactly what you would call it. But it's got to... Almost anything is better than donut hole.
Regardless, in 2008, yet another Mexican expedition was sent out to find the island. And they could not, further confirming its lack of existence.
Yeah, further proving that it's just not
insert
real.
fart noise here. I literally only have 3 jokes. I don't know why you guys keep watching these videos. This led to theories.
I'm assuming it's because it's
concerning the
interesting.
absence of the island. These theories
It's kind of like the fat electrician. It's you bring up interesting stuff that you wouldn't think of otherwise.
range all the way from the batshit crazy to the, I don't know, maybe. Let's break them down, starting with the batshit crazy. First theory. Some people believe the absence of the island of Bermeja can be explained quite simply.
Love the batshit crazy ideas.
An alternate dimension. Yep. Good old Mandela effect. We've slipped into a different dimension where Berenstain Bears Island doesn't exist. But it did in
That was good. Combining Epstein with Bernstein, Bernstein Bears. That was a good joke. And the whole alternate reality thing. I don't know. I both like and dislike those kinds of theories. All right, I'm back. I don't know why, but my OBS decided to crash and it took me a little bit to find out where I was. Luckily, I didn't get really anywhere with the video and I noticed it pretty quickly.
But it did in the old dimension. which, whatever, sure, okay. Like, it couldn't have been a whole continent that disappeared. Just some random-ass tiny island that a drunken, probably syphilitic Spaniard found 500 years ago.
Oh, yeah, that's where I was at with this. The whole aspect of, oh, even if it is an alternate reality where it existed in the old reality and it doesn't in this new one that we're in, it doesn't matter because the island still doesn't exist, which means Mexico doesn't get the island. So in that scenario, it still just does not matter in that sense.
Sure. Yeah, that's probably definitely what happened. Please take your medication. Your family is very worried about you. Theory dose. The CIA destroyed the island to extend American influence into Mexico's exclusive economic zone because of the oil. Now this one, slightly less crazy perhaps. I don't
slightly
trust
less
the CIA.
crazy.
That should be evidently clear from all of the videos that I've made talking about all the crazy shit they've done since they've been around.
I'm sorry, if
can
you
watch
trust the
one here or
CIA,
there or wherever.
right there. I'm sorry, if you trust our government, you're a fucking dipshit. If you really think that the government wouldn't do that, yes, they would. You're a moron if you trust the government. But also, I saw it in a comment here. Oh, look, Herrera, I like you. Where was it? I guess not. I could have sworn I saw a comment on it, on this, that basically said, I'm pretty sure it was it Wendigoon or someone else? I can't remember. But it was basically, or was it on a Wendigoon video? Hold on. Oh, there it was. No, it was Mini Minuteman. Ironically enough, because I was talking about him earlier in the video. Who said, you don't have to come up with conspiracies to hate the government. You can just hate the government because of what they do. So, yeah.
Once I'm done. Watch it once I'm done. Does the incentive exist? Absolutely. There's nothing America loves more than some crude
I probably
oil,
will
baby.
check it out.
A lot of places have found that out the hard way. But did the capability to destroy an entire island exist? Well, depending on the size of the island, yeah.
Yeah, depending on the size.
This to have been the case?
No.
Probably not, honestly. I mean, there's a couple reasons. First of which being that the evidence the island didn't exist started showing up 100 years before America had the capability to destroy an island at a time when we were actively at war with Mexico, so we could have just taken it if we wanted it. Which, I mean, like, if you ask James K. Polk, who was president at the time, he definitely would have taken it. He wanted the Yucatan Peninsula, too. Jamie, pull up that map of all the territory that James K. Polk wanted.
Oh, man. If only. If only we got all this shit. I am a firm believer in uniting North America and taking Canada and uniting Canada and Mexico both under the United States banner. I'm a firm believer in that. Why? Because it would solve a whole bunch of issues. And I believe America is number one because we are. Fuck you if you disagree.
Is my hand in it? It is. I don't have a Jamie. I'm my own Jamie.
Yeah, hell yeah, me too.
And the second reason being that the discussion as to who would have the territorial claims to these waters as decided by the UN didn't even come up till 1973 before they were decided in 1982. So if the CIA was going to make that baller move, they would have had to have done it in the 70s or 80s, aka in the middle of the Cold War. The reason I bring that up is because here is where Bermeja.
I was gonna say, even if it's like up here, like, yeah, so this is where it supposedly is. Even if it was like up here-ish, it's still incredibly close to Cuba, which, you know, communist and good friends with Russia during the Cold War. Even if we wanted to nuke it, it would have been incredibly stupid to. Unless this reporter is trying to say that that's why the Cuban Missile Crisis happened. In which case, you need to stop playing Call of Duty. You know?
Supposedly existed. And that right there is Cuba. Cuba, very close ally to the Soviet Union. Closer to the supposed location of Bermeja than the United States of America. If the US had decided to drop a bomb large enough to destroy an entire island next to one of our greatest enemies in the world under the threat of nuclear annihilation, I'm not sure how that would have gone over. Another theory.
Honestly,
is that
nice
an
use of
earthquake or
Terminator
continental
2.
shift caused the island to be pulled into the sea.
Nice use
like
of Terminator
Mexican
2
Atlantis.
footage.
Which, maybe. But if so, it would have had to have happened sometime between the 1550s when old Senor Nobody Knows Who claims to have discovered the island and the 1840s when Johnny Aerosmith called him on his bluff. And that is totally possible. It definitely could have happened. But there is
The main issue with that is I think Minuteman yet again talked about it, saying I'd have to rewatch the video, that there's literally no evidence to support around that area that an island was there.
very little to no seismic activity in the Gulf of Mexico, to the point where seismography isn't even studied in the Gulf of Mexico, or seismology, one of the two of those. I don't care, I'm not looking it up. And trust me, if it was a concern, they would definitely
That's something I would do.
into the study.
No,
of the
I lied. I
tectonic
did
movements
I did
of the
look it
Gulf
up.
of Mexico. Because remember, it's full of oil. It's full of oil. That's why they're even trying to prove the place existed, because the oil, remember?
It's full of oil, dead dinosaurs.
Theory
So of course we're
4.
going to look into it.
Global warming.
Global wapu?
Yeah. This theory states that rising sea levels have since placed the surface of the island underwater. And sea levels have risen since the 1500s. That's scientific fact. They've risen nearly 1.5 feet. If this was the case, at most, the island is less than 1.5 feet under the surface of the water. And not only would they have detected it with their advanced sonar equipment, they would have smashed the hull of their boats into it, because at most, it's 1.5 feet under the surface of the water.
Yeah.
Theory 5. Mapsy oopsie poopsie. Maps in the 1500s weren't exactly known for their accuracy. I mean, get a load of that. Not saying I could do that.
It's a hell of a map.
Even if I lived in the 1500s, I couldn't do it now, probably, but it doesn't matter. The guy who drew that map's been dead for 460 years.
Yeah.
Fun of him.
Pretty much.
If you happen to be watching this in the year 2485, by all means, make fun of me. I can assure you, I don't care.
No, I'll be dead
Plus,
and
there are
long gone by
hundreds
that
of
point.
those phantom islands over the course of history. Sometimes they were an optical illusion, sometimes they were a cartographer's error, or sometimes they would just make shit up. So during this time, maps were more precious than gold, and countries held on to their maps in the same way that modern countries hold on to their nuclear launch codes. So one of the tricks that cartographers would use to see if there was a leak or if somebody was copying their maps is they would make shit up and put it on their map, and then if somebody else showed up with a map that had the shit they made up, they would go, "Ha, gotcha." Modern day map companies actually still do this with land maps, these so-called paper towns. They just make things up to make sure that people aren't copying their work. For the record, the director of the Mexican Cartographer Society
Kinda
believes this
smart,
to be the case.
also really fucking
He stands to
crazy.
gain a lot more from the existence of Bermeja than I do. Plus, he actually knows what he's talking about. But you want to hear my theory?
Yes. Let's hear your theory. Yeah, of course I do. I'm
Remember
watching your
earlier when
video.
I told you to remember that repulsive brown color? This is the part where that is the now that I wanted you to remember it for. Now,
Out of context, that sounds incredibly racist, or has the ability to sound racist.
I have seen basically nothing in my research that has stated my theory, so I'm basically pulling it out of my ass. But hear me out. So,
As most theories
the
are.
guys who discovered Bermeja named it Bermeja because that's the Spanish word for the ruddy, brownish, reddish color that they said the island was.
Mm-hmm.
This color. That being
Really
said,
ugly color.
in the ocean, there's a species of animal you may have heard of called coral.
Coral.
And yes,
Fuck
coral
you
is
for
an animal,
using
it's
that.
not a plant. You should have stayed awake in 4th grade science class, idiot. On occasion, coral will do something called a coral spawn. And that's when the coral will...
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me, but I actually didn't know that. And I don't think that was actually covered in my 4th grade science class. And if it was, I do not remember it whatsoever. But hey, I know it now.
Release all of its eggs and sperm, and they'll float to the surface of the water, and it looks like this.
Oh, that's cool.
A reddish-brown island-shaped splotch on the surface of the water.
Possibly seen from a distance.
And while the Mexican government has never been able to find an island where Bermeja supposedly existed, you know what does exist there?
Coral?
A fucking coral reef. Now,
That's
do
cool.
I have any evidence that this was the case? Obviously not. Of course not. Don't be silly. But they did supposedly find an island that no one has ever seen since, in a location that we know a coral reef exists on, and they named the island they supposedly saw specifically after the color of a coral spawn directly over a coral reef. I'm pretty sure they saw a big old floating island of coral.
Coral cum.
Excuse me. But that's just a theory. A trout theory. I am of the opinion that it's definitely more likely than all the other bullshit we were talking about.
Honestly, that makes the
And why
most
am I,
sense.
an internet shit poster, the first person to come up with this fucking theory? Like, we're literally talking about disputes in international waters. Why am I the one fucking doing the research for you, Mexico?
Because you don't have anything to actually fucking gain from it. That's why. It's because you have nothing to gain from actually proving whether or not this bitch fucking existed. It's because of that. You're not a representative of the US, so you don't gain anything from that. Or the oil companies, as some people like to say. You're not a representative of that. And you're not a representative of Mexico with their same with their oil companies. So therefore, it doesn't really matter what you say, because they're trying to prove it in their benefit. That's why you're the first one to come up with it, or state it, I should say.
I mean, technically that would be for America, because Mexico wants the island to exist, but I don't know. I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know. Maybe 15 years from now, the CIA will come out and be like, yeah, no, we totally nuked that back in 54. That wouldn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me anymore.
No, it's the fucking US government. How the fuck can you be surprised at this point?
Whatever. But anyways, I've been King Trout, and as always, thank you for watching.
Oh, that's how you fucking end
What
it?
happened to part 2 of the Halloween video?
It's a sensitive subject and I don't want to talk about it.
What I do want to talk about is how I'm going to be changing up the style of content I make a little bit. Going to be mixing something else in that I think you'll like, because a lot of you have asked for it after I suggested maybe I do it one time. There's a little hintski for you. But yeah, thanks for watching, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, call your mom, do all that stuff, merchandise, link below. I love you. Bye.
Bye. That was interesting. And I'm assuming this is the Halloween video he was talking about. I'll have to check that out because I have no idea what you were talking about. That seemed... Honestly, this was really interesting. I'll have to check out more of his shit, because I've been putting off actually checking out some of this longer form content. Make sure to give that a like. Well, that was King Trout. And honestly, for the first ever video I've seen of his for the first ever long form video of his I've seen, I should say, that was actually really fucking interesting. And yeah, I think it's somewhat in the same vein as the Fat Electrician, of him bringing to light stuff that I wouldn't have thought about. And that's really cool to see it, because I love that kind of shit. It's kind of like Wendigoon, because Wendigoon also does that kind of stuff. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment if you liked it or didn't like it. I don't particularly care. Subscribe if you want to see more. And until next time, take care of yourselves.
yourself. Communism sucks.